friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Aylin, and today, as you can tell, we are going to be doing a very big book haul. I did not count how many books there were, but I know it's a lot. I know it is quite a few. And if I missed any that I did get during this time being from like end of January to now, we're just gonna skip those. You'll see them on my bookshelves at some point, I'm sure, but this was all I was grabbing. As is kind of my MO for book hauls, I have broken them up into genres, but I do think there might be a couple repeats from my last haul. I wasn't entirely sure, so I threw them on here just in case. We're gonna get those out of the way first. So we are going to be starting with fantasy. I also have romance, mystery, book of the month, and random. I think those are like my pretty staple categories anyway. The three I couldn't remember whether or not that they were repeats. Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Shauna McGuire. This is like the 8th book or something like that in the Wayward Children series. It does deal with dinosaurs. I'm not going to spend too much time on any of the books because we have a lot to get through. It is the latest installation in the Wayward Children series, which is a novella series. One of my favorite series of all time. Then I have Harmony by Whitney Hansen. This is a poetry collection that I read at the beginning of February. I believe my boyfriend bought me this one, and it is hands down one of my favorite poetry collections that I've ever read. So this deals a lot with grief if you are into that. I am going to be doing a guide to poetry on my channel. Not entirely sure when, but it is coming. And lastly, the one I can't remember if I hauled is House of Flame and Shadow. This is the 3rd book in the Crescent City series. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about this particular book. I have not read it yet. I need to start the series, but I have heard a lot of mixed reviews on this. I'm like anxious about reading it. Surprisingly, we do have a solid amount of fantasy. We only have 2 young adult fantasy books though. Powerless, which I may have also hauled in my last video. I couldn't remember. This is by Lauren Roberts. It is a romantasy. Powerful, which is the novella, which I know I didn't haul because it came out more recently in April. Have not read either of these. I started this one and got like 4 pages in or something like that, and I was liking it. I just like wasn't in a fantasy mood, so I'm thinking potentially in the fall, but I've heard that these are both heartbreaking. Moving into our adult fantasy and romantasy. First up, we have Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mehrer. I'm not entirely sure. I apologize. This is a romantasy where, as the title states, we have our main character who is the assistant to the villain. Everyone in this kingdom thinks that the villain is like this old, creepy, gross man, and it is the only job she can find to be his assistant. She goes to meet him, and he's actually like very handsome. It is their romance. He literally hates everyone but her, which is a stunning trope, especially in fantasy, because like he will unalive people, but he will not unalive her. I cannot wait to read this one. I actually picked this up because my best friend said that she really loved it, and I know that the sequel comes out soon, or it's already out, so this is high on my priority list. Then I bought not 1 but 2 copies of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is a fantasy. I don't know if it's a romantasy or not, but it takes place in a fixed world and there are dragons. That is all I needed to know. I've heard amazing things about this by people who have very similar reading tastes to me, so I'm excited. But this one is the paperback. This is the copy that I plan to read and annotate. It is massive. And this one is the special Waterstones edition, so it's the hardcover with the stunning sprayed edges. I am obsessed. I had to get it. The end pages, are you kidding? And then the actual naked hardcover is also beautiful. I have a strong suspicion that I will love this book, so I wanted to get the beautiful special edition in preparation for loving it. Then I'm pretty sure these next few books were in my book shopping vlog that I did a little while ago. If you haven't seen that video, I'll have it linked down below so you can check it out. But I did a bookstore vlog as well as a bookish unboxing, and I unboxed some KU romantasies, starting with none other than Spark of the Everflame. I have heard nothing but rave reviews about this series. Like I said, it is a romantasy series. I don't know very much about it. Same goes for the rest of them, but like I said, I've heard that the series only gets better with time, so I wanted a physical copy. Then I picked up Blood and Steel by Helen Shorer. Most of these recommendations, I do confess, came from Rachel over at Raven-Haired Reader. She is like the queen of romantasy, I feel like. We seem to have very similar tastes. I started this barely. I got like a page or two in and I was immediately hooked, so I cannot wait to complete this series and even start this one. I feel like the fall time I will hopefully be in my fantasy era, but I am so excited to read this one. This one looks so freaking good. And the last one I know a little bit more about, but not much, and that is The Everking by L.J. Andrews. This is a pirate romantasy. That is all I know. It was like Pirates of the Caribbean meets something else, and I was like, that sounds cool. And then some books that I picked up in that vlog when I physically went to the bookstore. I got One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig because I've heard nothing but amazing things about this. This is book one in a romantasy duology. In this one, we are kind of following characters who have like tarot card magic, and I just think that is the coolest thing ever. Like, the chapter headers have little tarot card things. They're not tarot cards, but basically like you tap the card and you can have the power that it possesses, but I think magic comes at a price. I haven't read it yet, but I am really, really excited to read this one. And this one was definitely like, it does sound interesting, but like when you see it, you'll understand. I just had to have it because I love beautiful books. Five Broken Blades by Mai Corland. This is a fantasy that has been pitched as similar to Six of Crows. I believe this is inspired by Asian mythology, and it's like a heist story, but it's a ragtag team. And the back says, "Let the best liar win." And lastly, for fantasy, I don't have the dust jacket on this one, but it is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is, again, the first book in a romantasy duology where they use magical typewriters to communicate with one another. They are kind of enemies to lovers. I did start this one, so I know a little bit more about it. They work at a newspaper. They're kind of like pitting for the same job. The male love interest is like from a wealthy family, kind of seems to be a shoo-in for this job, and our female main character is not doing so well. Her mom, I believe, is an alcoholic, and her brother was sent off to war, and she hasn't been able to communicate with him since the day he left. So she writes on this typewriter in order to try to speak with him, and instead our male love interest answers because their typewriters are connected. It's really, really beautiful so far. I don't truly know why I put it down. It was kind of stupid, and I'm kind of convincing myself to pick it back up again because it was really, really good. This has been pitched as a fantasy for romance lovers, so if you are interested in diving into the fantasy genre but you are kind of coming from the romance genre, I would say maybe start with this one because it's a lower fantasy world and might be easier to like dip your toe into, because I know fantasy can be really, really overwhelming. So the other poetry book that I got during this time was Climate by Whitney Hansen. I am 110 pages into this one. I'm pretty sure the theme of this one is just kind of like self-love and self-acceptance, as well as dealing with some mental health in there. Like I said, I am about a third of the way through and I'm really enjoying it. I love Whitney Hansen's poetry. I think it's truly so beautiful, and a lot of this has already really, really resonated with me. I just don't like to like force myself to read poetry, so I'm sure I will finish this very, very soon. I needed to complete my Whitney Hansen collection. The other one that was an absolute must purchase, if you know me well, you know what this is about to be, and that is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. This is the 5th book in the Magnolia Parks series and the final book about Magnolia and BJ that we are getting. I am currently reading The Great Undoing, so this is next and I am terrified. I'm hoping to finish it by the end of the year, but I also know these books take me forever. If you have not read these are like London High Society meets like Chuck and Blair from Gossip Girl. It is a really like toxic love story, but it is also so beautiful, and the series flips back and forth between Magnolia and BJ and Daisy and Christian. I'm not sure where we're going from here other than getting more books from Daisy's perspective. Nonetheless, I am simultaneously excited and terrified to continue on. Another series that means a terrifying amount to me is Lore Olympus. This is the 6th volume. I got the Barnes & Noble Special Edition. These are a graphic novel series that were originally published on Webtoon by Rachel Smith. It is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and it is stunning. Look up content warnings though before going in, because it does deal with some really heavy subject matter. I have 3 Junji Ito books to show you. I have not purchased Junji Ito in such a long time, so I was kind of itching to get some more. Most recently, I got Soichi by Junji Ito. This is a short story collection, and this cover I am absolutely obsessed with. I think that this is gorgeous. I've been meaning to get my hands on this for quite a while, so I'm very happy that it is here. Then I got Stitches, which has some of Junji Ito's like artwork in it, but I believe it is a light novel, which just has like some horror stories in here. And lastly, I have Mimi's Tales of Terror by Junji Ito, which I did already read. These were a little bit different than his normal short story collections because this had some short stories in it, but they were all about the same character. I did really like this one. I will try to link the wrap-up that I talked about it in case you're interested in some more of my in-depth thoughts. This one is following the same character and just like multiple horror stories throughout. Next, we're going to move on to mystery, which is also a very small category. First, I purchased a copy of Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun by El Cosmano. This is the 3rd book in the Finley Donovan series. I did read this last year, I believe, around the time that it came out. Or actually, I think I was late to reading this because my reading last year sucked. But either way, I did read this last year and really, really enjoyed it. I love all of the Finley Donovan books that El Cosmano has put out so far. I just purchased mine originally in paperback, so I always have to wait for the paperbacks to come out in order to add them to my collection. If you've never heard of this series before, it's basically about a mom who accidentally gets involved with crime and a little bit of the mafia, but they're like cozy mysteries. She's got the sidekick who is her nanny. There are like some cheesy romances in here. In the first book, we've got a cop and a lawyer, but they're really, really fun. I love them. They are mysteries that have good amount of like lightheartedness to them, and that is like one of my favorite things, because if you're in the mood for a mystery but you don't want to be super scared, this series is perfect for that. Then one of my friends at work told me that there was this really cool edition of a book, and I was like, okay, sold. And it's a limited edition, so I gotta go get myself a copy. I don't know a thing about it, but that is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. I know that she has published other books and that they have done very, very well, so I just wanted a copy of this because it's like a cassette tape. Like, that is so freaking cool. Tell me this is not the coolest freaking packaging ever. If I could get it back in the stupid box. Oh, the back is intriguing. It says, most home movies show happy family memories, but this one reveals a deadly secret. Then, the only YA mystery I have picked up recently was the reappearance of Rachel Price. Of course, it was a Holly Jackson. This is Holly Jackson's newest release, and I believe this is basically about a girl whose mom disappeared, and they're starting to film like an expose on it, and she comes back, and this is all about like where she went, why she was gone, how she came back, all of that stuff. Never read a book like this where like the person who has been missing for such a long time has come back and they're trying to figure out what happened. I'm sure there's way more to it than that, or they have amnesia or something like that. And lastly, I have Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I have another book on my shelves by him called The Pallbearers Club, which I picked up because Kayla from Books and Lala had read it and said that it was kind of like funny, but she really, really enjoyed it. This has a similar premise to one of my favorite books as well, which was just like icing on the cake, top selling point for me, that they're doing like a mockumentary on haunted houses or something like that, and then they actually find more than they bargained for, and no one was equipped for it. The book that is very similar to, which I didn't mention, was Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. 10 out of 10, one of my favorite books of all time. It is a science fiction horror. It was crazy. Before we dive into the huge amount of romance, we're gonna go ahead with the Book of the Month books, because I also have to unbox some. These are in no particular order because I don't remember which months they are from. I know it'll tell me on the back, but I didn't put them in order. So first one is actually my current read, and that is Dark Corners by Megan Golden. This is the sequel to Night Swim. It's the second book in the Rachel Crawl series. These books are basically about a woman who has a true crime podcast. She's like solving different cases. In this one, she gets invited by the FBI to kind of help with a case because her name is brought up by like one of the suspects, I believe. I'm not very far into it, but I will say if you are planning on reading these books, 10 out of 10, I would recommend the audiobooks for them because they are so well produced. We're getting multiple points of view, potentially a couple of suspects' points of view, I think. At least that's my interpretation of it, as well as Rachel's, and then spliced throughout we get the podcast and like all of the noise and everything. Like, it's just such a well-produced audiobook, so I really recommend reading them that way if you're interested and you like audiobooks. Then this is the book that has a somewhat similar plot summary to the reappearance of Rachel Price, and that is The Return of Ellie Black. Again, it's about someone who has gone missing, they turn back up, and they kind of need to discover what happened while they were gone. Then I have one that one of my friends from high school was reading for a book club, and she said that it was really good, and that is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This is one that I believe was a book of the month book. Oh, it was earlier this year, and I didn't end up picking it because I wasn't sure if I would like it, but when she said that, I was like, okay. So I added it as an extra in my box. I don't know much about this. I think it might be about an author. No, it's about identity thief. I don't know where an author came from. Still really excited to read this one. This next one was another add-on for me, and that is The Intern by Michelle Campbell. I believe this is about a woman who is interning at DA's office, and she ends up finding maybe some information that she shouldn't have, and the DA is going to be okay with it or try to do something to her to make sure that their secrets are not revealed. The next one I actually have read, and that is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This one was one of my favorite thrillers that I have read so far this year. This one also has a podcast element to it. It is about a girl who goes back to her hometown after 5 years, which she initially left because she had been suspected of unaliving her best friend. They never had any proof, and she doesn't have any memories, so she was never convicted, but everyone in the town still thinks it was her, and a podcaster comes to town and he's like, hey, I don't know if you did it, but I'm doing like this season on it if you want to like come on the podcast, try to defend yourself, all of that. Would also recommend reading this one, especially if you like quick reads. This has a little bit of like laughter, comedic moments in it, and really short chapters. I also picked up A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. I have read one Peter Swanson book before and I actually hated it, but I have heard really good things about his work, so I wanted to give him another go. This was also really short, and I heard it was a fast read. It was like one of the things on Book of the Month, I think. That or like short chapters or something. I have seen a couple people that I know give this really good reviews, so I am hoping that I like it. And then lastly, before we unbox my actual book of the month, I have Happy and You Know It by Laura Hankin. This one sounded interesting because it was like mommy drama, and that is it. That's all I know. Diving into my actual book of the month, I got 4 books this month because I'm nuts. First, we have the bookmark, which just says this was bound to happen. I love all of their little jokes. The first book that I got this month was House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen. I got this one because it was the thriller for this month. I've never read a Sarah Pekkanen. I believe she usually writes with Greer Hendricks, but this looks like it has some pretty short chapters, so sign me up. If a thriller has short chapters, I'm gonna read it. It is what it is. I don't know anything about the plot of that one, but I feel like thrillers, you shouldn't know much about them because otherwise, like, you're gonna figure it out before you read the book. I mean, obviously not if it's done right, but you know what I'm saying. Then I picked up Bad Tourist by Caro Carver. This one I honestly picked up because it gave like beachy summer vibes, and I thought it would be a fun thriller to read during the summer months. This one also has short chapters. I might need to pick this up soon because summer is ending. But like the cover just drew me in, and I really like thrillers that are set on like a vacation at a beach. It does something for me. Then I picked one up that is not my usual book of the month genre when I'm picking, but it is The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton. Tell me this doesn't look stunning. You can't. And ornithologists are like bird watchers, and it just sounds so freaking cute, but also whimsical and just like actually beautiful. I don't have words. So I'm hoping that I love it. I've heard some decent reviews so far, so fingers crossed mine will be amidst them. And lastly, I got the new Riley Sager because I own pretty much all of his books in the Book of the Month editions. That Book of the Month did. I don't own all of his books, but the ones that I do own are Book of the Month. This is Middle of the Night, which I know nothing about. Moving on to our loftiest section, we have romance. I'm gonna go through this as fast as humanly possible because I've been talking for a long time. First, I got Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This is a dark romance, I believe, about someone who was captured, or like a boy who went missing. He resurfaces and this girl had like taken care of him and never forgot about him. I think that's what this one is about. I've heard it's really, really sad, but I am excited to read it, and I want to pick up Lotus by her as well. Then I have a couple of author sections. So the first one is Lauren Asher. I have Love Redesigned and Love Unwritten. These, I believe, both came out this year. These are the first two books in the Lakefront Billionaire series, which take place at Lake Wisteria. I think you're supposed to read these after the Dreamland Billionaire series, so I have not read them yet because I'm still reading Terms and Conditions. It's embarrassing, but I've heard amazing things about this and I'm so excited to get to this series. Who doesn't love a billionaire romance? I know plenty of people don't, but I love them. Then we have the Elsie Silver portion of this video, of which I have quite a few books. I meant that. This is not in order of how I purchased them, but I have Off to the Races by Elsie Silver, which is the prequel series to the Chestnut Springs series. This is the first book. It's the Gold Rush Ranch series. I also have Wild Love, which is the first book in Rose Hill series. I've heard pretty decent things about this one, but like not as much love as the Chestnut Springs series, but this comes after Chestnut Springs. And then I have the entirety of the Chestnut Springs series. So I have this very odd edition of Flawless that is not the right size at all, but I have the pretty cover for pictures. Hopefully I will eventually be able to get my hands on like the correct formatting, but for now this will work. Heartless, which is book 2 and in the correct formatting, thank God. Powerless, same situation, stunning. Reckless and Hopeless. Very excited to have these special editions because I don't like the other editions, if I'm completely honest. Then I have some of my most recent pickups, and by recent I mean I got them yesterday. So I have Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the third book in the Bright Falls series. The first book being Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This is a sapphic romance series that takes place in a small town in Oregon with a bunch of female friendship. They are delightful. They make me so happy. I loved this one. It was probably my favorite in the series. The Vows by Jessica Joyce. It's about a girl who had these two best friends. I think they were both guys. I don't fully remember. Her and one of the guys dated and they ended up breaking up even though they were the best of friends, and their other friend is getting married. They're the best man and maid of honor, so they are kind of like in charge of all of the minute things for the wedding, and they have to spend a lot of time together and rekindle it. I saw Sarah Caroli read this one and the next one in a vlog and I was like, okay, I'll buy them. The next one is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I can't remember if I actually saw Sarah read this or if it was Maddie from Madison Kate, but I've heard that this one is really beautifully written, not quite like Ashley Poston level. It doesn't have like the magical realism or anything, but it does deal with like some heavy topics and have really beautiful writing, and I am a sucker for beautiful writing. Then I'm also a sucker for a good sapphic romance and a fun summer love story, so I got Here We Go Again by Allison Cochran. This is a sapphic road trip story. I also love a good dark spicy mystery to switch it up, so I got Butcher and Blackbird, which my best friend told me that I would really like, and this is by Brand Weaver. This is a serial unaliver romance. They are both serial killers. I've heard some interesting things about this, but my best friend told me that I would probably like it, so it's here. I also bought both of Ali Hazelwood's releases, so I got Bride, which is on my shelves because I forgot to grab it, and I'm not going to do that now, which is an Omegaverse romance. I've never read an Omegaverse romance, but it is not the only one in this haul, as well as Not in Love, of course, by Ali Hazelwood. Really excited to read this one, and don't worry, they will be read very soon. Speaking of Omegaverse, I also got The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson, as well as The Game Changer. This one is a hockey romance, and this one, like I said, is an Omegaverse romance. Heard really good things about Lana Ferguson and her writing, so I am excited to give both of these a try. Then I think these were in my book shopping vlog. I got When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I have already read these. I just wanted copies for my shelves. These are beautiful small town romances. If you don't like smut, I would definitely recommend them. I think the second one does get a little bit spicy, but it's not a ton. It's still very like mild. Even if you are like a spicy smut person, cannot say I judge you. These are incredible and I still recommend you read them. I also picked up a novel love story by Ashley Poston because I've heard so many good things about it. A love letter to romance readers because the main character is going on this retreat that all of her friends usually go on her with to like read and get away. Her car breaks down on her way there. When she wakes up, she is in the town that her favorite series takes place in. Switching gears a little bit to some more spicy romance, I did pick up Camera Shy by Kay Cove. This is the first book in the, I don't know what the series is called, but I really enjoyed this one. This one is about Finn and Avery. Avery had a really brutal breakup that takes place in the beginning of this book. She ends up moving to Vegas. Finn is her temporary neighbor who is also a boudoir photographer, and they agree to like some intimacy lessons so that Avery can gain some self-confidence and of course end up falling in love along the way. They agree to intimacy lessons because Avery's previous partner said that that was the reason that he wanted to break up, was that that part of their romantic lives was lacking, and she never wants that to be the reason anyone ever breaks up with her again. I also bought the first book to another romance series because I simply cannot be stopped, and that is A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. I've been wanting to read this one and this series and just Megan Quinn in general for such a long time, so I finally picked this one up. I don't really remember what it's about, but I'm excited to read it. I think that these covers are so cute and I can't wait. But it's the first book in the Kane Brothers series. I think they might be billionaire romances. Yeah, this one is a billionaire romance, surprisingly. Another first book in a romance series because like I said, I just can't be stopped. Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow. This was too pretty not to, with the kisses on the pages, like this sprayed edge. I had to. This is the first book in the Cherry Tree Harbor series. This series takes place in a small town, so if you like a small town, I highly recommend because it was done so well in this one. This one is a nanny single dad romance and I really liked it. That'll be in my August wrap up. And the last two books are the first two books in the Windy City series. So I have Mile High, which I am now hearing mixed things about, and The Right Move, which I have heard nothing but 5-star reviews for, both by Liz Tomford. These are sports romances. I think this one's hockey and this one is the NBA, but the next two I think are baseball. Play Along recently came out. I bought these a while ago with the intention of reading them and I just haven't gotten to them yet, but I am really excited because they sound incredible. We are finally done. We've made it to the end, thank God. If you've made it this far, leave the teddy bear emoji. I'm obsessed with that one. I think it is the absolute cutest. But that is going to be it from me for this book haul. It was quite lengthy and I don't want to do another one that is this long ever again. I've said that before and I end up doing them all the time. So we'll see if that actually goes to plan. But I love you all so much. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books before, what your thoughts were, all of that. I love talking to you guys, even if all you say is hi. That is going to be it from me. I love you all so much. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're doing well, reading, mentally, and otherwise. And I really hope to see you all in my next video very, very soon. Bye, guys.